So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. It just had a quick question. Is it going to be on YouTube? Yes, it is going to be on YouTube. So in a moment, I'll be streaming live on YouTube as well. So if anyone else wants to join, they can go onto our Seneca CPD YouTube channel to join. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see exactly what I see. Give me a moment. Here we go. So you should all be able to see my screen now. So as I say, I'll start off with talking a bit about what Seneca is and how it's come to be developed in the way it is. So in terms of what we are as an organization and what we provide is we have a homework and distance learning platform for students, teachers and parents to use. And some of the best things about it are that, first of all, I've mentioned this a bit already, but it's based on cognitive science. So what is being shown to be really effective in learning is actually automatically baked into the system. So you don't have to worry about whether your students are using effective learning strategies. It happens automatically. Secondly, everything's automated on there. So your marking happens automatically. And linked to point 3, you can track progress off the back of that, so you can understand exactly what your students do and don't understand. Fourthly, it's adaptive. And what we mean by that is that as a student goes through Seneca, they get an individualized learning path. So say you set the same topic for 2 different students and you stood behind them and watched what was going on, you'd see 2 completely different sessions that would be automatically adapting to each of those students, depending on how they answered questions and how they showed any particular strengths or weaknesses in areas of that topic. So that could look like adapting the content. So we're giving more support to students who are struggling with a particular area, or also if students seem to be doing really well, we can push them onto harder content within that topic so that they can push forward with that. So that's a bit of background, make sure we're on the same page of what Seneca actually is. To talk about the science behind it, first we'll need to lay some foundations about how memories are created in the brain. So I'm sure a lot of you will have heard about working memory and the long-term memory in your brain. This sort of diagram here is a bit like a sort of scheme of like a diagram showing roughly what happens in the long-term memory as we understand it. So your cognitive memory is basically, as knowledge comes in, it's sort of processed in there, and then long-term memory are the memories that you access from your cognitive memory to recall things. So we have, if you imagine each of these dots as like a piece of knowledge or something that person knows. When you know something, that's basically you're able to sort of connect the dots within your long-term memory to sort of know what something is. So an equivalent of knowing something is maybe being able to identify identify 2 words in a foreign language to identify that they're the same. Okay, so that's you just knowing what that word is. Okay. Understanding it is when you're able to connect this piece of knowledge, so seeing this word in a foreign language, and you're able to connect it to something that you know already. So here the dots are connecting to other areas of the brain, where other pieces of knowledge within your brain to basically help you create what's called schema. So we are connecting this new word in Spanish, let's say, to the image of whatever it is in Spanish. Say it's a passion fruit or something. Image of a passion fruit, and this might be taste of a passion fruit. It's connecting to more knowledge, and you're connecting this word and you're associating it with these different bits of knowledge that you have. Now, as you develop these schemas more and more, you are able to then basically develop a greater understanding of how to use that knowledge. So you might be able to use it in a sentence, you might be able to ask questions on it. That is because you're able to construct a sentence based around the other knowledge you have, but you still need to know that core knowledge and understanding of that individual word in Spanish to be able to use it. And by developing that and practicing and making more and more connections within your brain over time, that's when you start to develop mastery of that knowledge. So that's sort of what happens, or as it's understood at the moment, what happens within your long-term memory. How we help at Seneca is we focus on these first two sections here. So developing the knowledge and understanding that students need. And so, for example, looking at how to actually answer an exam style question, say, for example, and put knowledge into an essay would come more under the use. But if we give students more time on Seneca to understand, to develop understanding of that knowledge and learn the different facts they need in order to effectively answer a question, then you guys as teachers will have more time to work on this with them. Now, there's lots of different ways you can do this and build these schemas in your brain, but these are 6 strategies that we implement. This is a diagram taken straight from the Learning Scientist, which if you want to learn more about cognitive science, I really recommend as a website to go to. But I'm just going to quickly run through what these 6 strategies are so you can sort of understand how they work and where they fit within Seneca. So firstly is concrete examples. So that is basically a way to activate prior knowledge. So when you're teaching a new piece of knowledge, you're trying to, as I've mentioned, you're trying to connect it to existing pieces of knowledge. So by linking to concrete examples, you are basically doing that. So every time we deliver some content in Seneca, we always, where possible, try and link it to something concrete that students know and understand, so that they are developing a greater schema in their head, in their brains. We've then got dual coding. Now that is showing the same piece of information in lots of different ways to help students develop their understanding of what it is. So it's not just showing something in text. It might also be showing an image that's related to that. It might be showing a diagram, a flowchart, a mind map, showing the same information in lots of different ways. Basically makes each of those different ways is like a new memory in your brain. And again, you're then connecting dots between each of those. So it's going to include the strength of that memory by having lots of different ways of remembering it, not just text, not just image, not just diagram, but having 3 of those is much more effective. Then we've got elaboration, and again, that's an activation of prior knowledge that you guys, when you're in the classroom, you'll be doing hundreds of times a day. It's about asking your why and your how questions. So based on what you know, I'm teaching you this new thing. How do you know that this is true based on your existing knowledge? So it's a good way to activate prior knowledge and again, make connections between existing knowledge and the stuff you're teaching them. Then we've got interleaving, which is effectively switching between different topics as students learn. So we will split between different bits of content as a student goes through on Seneca. This one tends to be the most counterintuitive when you're explaining it to students, because they, if they're focusing on one thing, why would it make sense to be focusing on different things, and how would that help you remember? So yes, this is a really important one that that happens automatically within Seneca, so you don't need to worry about whether your student's doing it or not. And then these last 2 are basically they're linked in a lot of ways. So retrieval practice is giving students the opportunity to practice retrieving the information that they are learning. So that would be in a classroom setting, it would be asking the question. They have to think, they have to retrieve the memory from their brain, and they have to recall what it is and say what it is. So that is an example of retrieval practice. How we use it in Seneca is, if you think of more traditional, like independent learning tools, like say a revision guide, for example, you tend to see a big chunk of content, and then you see maybe a few questions at the bottom. Now, what the cognitive science says is that completely an ineffective way of learning. Much more effective to flip that and basically have a small section of content, but then repeatedly have to recall the information and answer questions on that content to make sure that you're having to recall that information. So about 80% of what a student sees on Seneca is questions for them to answer. And then this last one is very much linked to retrieval practice. Space practice is essentially giving students the opportunity to do that retrieval practice, but doing it spaced over a period of time. So a practical example of this would be if I told you my phone number now, probably a bit forward of me, but also if I asked you in a month's time and you hadn't written it down or anything like that, you'd probably forget that phone number. If I told you every day for a month what that phone number was, or asked you what that phone number was, and you had to remind yourself what that phone number was each time, by day 30, you're more likely to remember it than if I just asked you what it was on day 1 and then on day 30. So having that repeated practice to retrieve information is effective to building long-term memory. Now, that's obviously an extreme example, but by getting students to revisit content spaced over a period of time, that will help them to remember it. Now, this theory is obviously very good in practice, and it all makes sense. I think, you know, so I'm an ex-teacher myself, like none of this doesn't make sense intuitively, but a lot of students and don't do it, and a lot of teachers forget about it when they're doing their planning. So it's really important to focus on that. And now, when we developed Seneca, we obviously used this as sort of a basis, but we wanted to make sure our implementation of this theory was effective. So we did a randomized controlled trial with just over 1,100 pupils that basically compared our implementation of these strategies and compared it to revision guides. And what we found was, with very similar pre-test scores in the different groups, the post-test scores showed that Seneca was over twice as effective in learning. So we see that as validation that what we're doing is effective, and that students are benefiting from it. Now, that research was peer-reviewed and published. So if you want to read more about it, you can go to any of these websites and just search for us, or just if you just Google impact Seneca retrieval practice, it will come up. Also, feel free to ask me any questions if you want. So in terms of where we are now on Seneca and what we have content right from Key Stage 2 right up to end of A levels, and where in Key Stage 2 and 3 we link all our content to national curriculum. And then at GCSE and A level, everything is exam board specific. So it's exactly what your students need to know, and nothing is left out. So you can sort of access this and use this all for free. In terms of where we are users now, we've got, I think it's probably closer to 3.5 million users now, and about 150,000 teachers. Slides is a little bit out of date, but I struggle to keep up, to be honest. So yeah, so those are the current numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, if you've got any questions on any of that, please put them in the chat, and I'll happily come back to them a bit later in the session. But next, we're just going to have a look at actually how this looks in Seneca, and so you can see what a student sees and how it works for students. So this is the Seneca, sort of the first page students see when they log in. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is the recent courses at the top here. Then we've got a section for assignments. So at the moment, I don't have any assignments as a student, sorry, but they'll pop up here if they did. Then you can see this map, which what this map does is it basically shows you different areas, these sort of things that pop up. These are different, what we call memories, that students can win basically by completing studies. So there's nothing more to this than this. These are things for students to collect rather than anything else. But each of these different places are things that I've studied as a student, and I've won these different places. And the students just like collecting those and having them on their map. Then we've got these metrics down the side here. These bottom two are probably pretty self-explanatory, but the knowledge score needs a bit of explaining. Again, so that is a metric we use just to incentivize students to continue to keep on learning on the platform. It's not diagnostic in any way. It's not useful for you guys as teachers. All it basically is a number that goes up and up and up, and it's a sort of it's an accumulation of questions answered correctly, and time spent studying, and that number will just go up and up, as I say, as students again enjoy that number, competing with their friends on it. Then the other thing to mention is down here we've got some leaderboards, so any student can compare themselves to anyone else studying the same courses as them in the world and see how it varies. This is my avatar name, Strong Carbon. So each student is assigned an avatar when they sign on, and this they can change that as well, so they have some ownership of it. But that's just to make sure that students don't know who other students are for obvious reasons. But I can see, you know, I'm not doing very well. I don't spend much time on it, but in this course, I can see that, you know, I can compare to my friends how I'm doing. I can go up and down this leaderboard, and again, it's yeah, a good way to incentivize students to carry on doing their learning. So what I'll do is I'll show you an actual learning course next. It's probably the best thing to do. So if I just go into here, being a bit slow, apologies. My computer's trying to do too many things at once. There we go. So when a student wants to pick a course, there's a few different ways they can do it. So they can either search for the course up here, or they can select these courses down the side using these filters. So what I'll do is I'll just go in and show us a GCSE. Let's go for, I don't know, what do we fancy? Go for a geography course. We'll go AQA exam board, and we'll pick one of these courses. So let's go for AQA GCSE standard course. So if you're familiar with the AQA GCSE spec, you'll recognize this from straight from the specification. And a student can go in here and select any section they want to study. There's no limitations on what they do. So let's go and look at ecosystems as an example. And when a student starts learning, the first thing that they'll be presented with is some information, some content to learn. So what you'll notice straight away is that there is dual coding going on here. So we're talking about producers using light energy. We've got light. We've got an example of a producer, a plant, producing their own food. And we've got consumers, again, dual coding with showing what the consumers are. Decomposers, again, image to sort of show that. So not only is the student remembering this, they're remembering the image to help them remember this as well. Something that's quite nice that if you've got students who struggle with reading and maybe that might be a bit intimidating, those few lines, you can make it come out sort of letter by letter, so students can not be overwhelmed by the amount of content. This speed can be changed depending on what's appropriate for the student. But I'll just turn this off for the moment just because it's easier for us. So once students had a chance to have a look through this information, what they'll do is they'll be able to then use retrieval practice to basically quiz themselves. So we've got a question here. What you'll notice as we go through, there's lots of different ways that we ask questions. So this is an example. We've got to do a free text. And here we've got to reorder things. So we'll go like that. And what this will be doing as I go through, so I've got the first two questions right. It will be picking up that I have a certain level of knowledge here, and it will be adapting accordingly. So it's moved me on here to some more content to look at. Again, I have a look through it, and then I'll be interleaving between those two bits of content that we've seen already. So I'll go through here. Oh, I should start getting some questions wrong. Hang on. So you can see the adaptive nature of it. So as I go through here, so you'll see questions coming up again to try and get me to sort of pick this up. Sometimes we'll show videos if students need a bit more help. So we'll skip that. And yeah, as you'll see, there's lots of different types of questions. The students aren't just identifying patterns; they're actually being quizzed on the content, and having to recall the content. So each of these times they're having to recall a bit of information. They are retrieving it from their brain, and they are learning and deepening the strength of that memory. Now, what you'll notice as well is students instantly get feedback. So here, I keep getting this one wrong. So students are told the correct answer when they do get things wrong. So they can hopefully learn from their mistakes. And this is an example, as I mentioned earlier, of these memories that you can win for places around the world. So here I'm going to choose this place in Bosnia-Herzegovina. and away I go on to the next section, or I can try it again if I want. So that's basically what a student session looks like. Obviously, this is a geography example. It's a very similar setup for any subject. You'll be shown content, and then it'll be repeatedly quizzed on that content. You might be shown some more content, and the questions will adapt to the individual depending on how they answer all the questions. And just to say as well, while I'm on that, it's not just your sort of your subjects you'd expect us to cover by this on Seneca. Like, we cover all sorts of subjects that maybe your non-EVAC subjects that might be missed off by some other learning websites. Like, we cover a really broad range, about 25 subjects in total. And yeah, so hopefully we cover the subjects that you guys teach. So that's in terms of, talked about the science behind it. I've shown you how it's implemented. I want to show you guys as well how practically it works for you as a teacher. So let's move on to our teacher platform. When you first sign in as a teacher, this is what you'll see. So the first thing you'll notice is you've got, I've got some classes already set up here. Apologies for the name. They're just ones I've just set up randomly. But you'll see you can either click up here to create a class, or you can just click create class here. And when you click that, you'll be asked to give it a name. You can see how I end up with all these random names for classes. And then you've got a set of steps here to follow as you go. So I've got started by creating a class. I've already done that. On to the next stage, I've got to add some courses to your class for your students to study. The big button here says add courses. If you need some support, you can get it here. But I'm going to add courses now. And in the same way as I did a bit earlier, when I was a student looking for a course, I can go in and select, using these filters or the search, all the different courses that we have. So I'm just going to select some courses. You can add as many or as few as you want. This is going to be a bit of a random selection. Seems to be a teacher who teaches this class business and chemistry, but we'll go with it. So I can then add the courses at the top. Excuse me. So next, now we've added some courses. You can see I've got these 9 courses in this class. The next step is to create an assignment. So what this will allow you to do is basically say to your students, you students in this class, I want you to complete this part of this course between this in this time. So let's do that now. So these are the 9 courses I selected a moment ago. I can just select one of those that I want to set an assignment for. And then these different sections are the things that so I went through one of these a moment ago in the geography course, but you can select as many or as few of these as you wish. And something quite nice as well, just up here, you've got an approximate time as well. So this is saying 18 to 30 minutes. So if you're thinking about how much work to set your students, that should help out. And then when I click assign, I'll give it a name. Again, I can give it any name I want, and I can give a set of start and end date. Now, this is quite handy if you want to plan forward into the future. The student will only see the assignment after the start date has passed. So say I wanted to start on Monday, I could select Monday, select a time for it to start. And also then I've got a due date that's when I want the student to complete it by. So I want them to do it by Friday, Friday night at 8 p.m. So again, that's just when the student's asked to do it by. They can still access it and complete it after this time, but it will just show in your data as completed late. So then I create a class, create an assignment, apologies. And the next thing, or the last thing, is to add some students to the class. At the moment, we haven't done anything about students. So again, I can get help if I need it, but I can just invite some students now. So there's a few different ways we offer for you guys to invite students, because we know there's different setups in all the different schools you guys will work in. The first way is to simply copy this link and into any shared area you have, be that a VLE, maybe show my homework. We also give buttons here to make it easier to go to Teams, Google Classroom, and share by email. But any shared area or any way of sharing this link with your students, you can do. So When a student clicks on it, I'll show you what it looks like. So a student will first of all be asked to log in if they haven't logged in already, or sign up if they haven't got an account with us yet. But once they click on that link and they've signed in, they'll get shown this message, which will load up in a second. So you just join name. Remember that was the name I gave the class. And when I click continue, it will take me into that class. Yeah, so they're all the 9 courses I added. And you can also see the class in here. Which one was it? It's probably this one, wasn't it? No. But yeah, you can see all the upcoming assignments the student has. So this is the assignment I've just completed. I've just set for this student. And as students start to join, all the data and complete the assignments, all the data will start coming through to your teacher account. The other way that you can get students to join your class is using this class code. So if you again want to just share that with your student, you can do that and they can type it in manually. That's absolutely fine. And probably this link here is useful, probably more useful when you get back in September, hopefully, is using this QR code. So you can either print this off and cut these out and give them to students, or if you want, you can put this up on your interactive whiteboard and students can all get their phones out and scan this so everyone gets added at once. It's quite an easy way to get everyone into the class nice and quickly. So that's then inviting students. Once you've done that, this pop-up will go at the top and you'll just be able to use your class and complete the data, see the data. So I mentioned data a few times. Obviously, this is all great. Your students can access really good resources. They're all free to use. But you guys need to also know what it is that your students are doing, how well they're doing, etc. So we have, first of all, probably the best thing to show you is the assignment section. Well, actually, before I do this, I'm going to move into a class that has some more students in, so you can see what it looks like. So there should be an assignment in this class. Yeah, okay. So this is just a different class. Just using this one just because it's got some students already uploaded in it. First of all, you can see how many students completed it, how many students completed it late, and how many students missed or didn't complete the assignment. So you can see here, none of my students completed it on time. But if you click on here, it opens up basically some data on these students. So you can see, I only set 2 sections in this assignment, but you can see red, amber, green, nicely presented how all your students did, whether they were late, not completed at all, or a tick would come up if it was completed on time. And you can also sort by any of these columns as well. So if you want to just see who's done particularly well, you can sort by that, or click again and it will sort by who's done not so well. The other option you've got here is, at the moment, I've got best score selected. You can also choose from various other different metrics. So most recent attempts, the worst score, the average score, number of attempts, and the total study time. So depending on what you want to see, that might be useful to you. So say I wanted to see worst score, I'd click this and you'd see the data change, a lot more red there. If I went for best score, again, the data would change, and you can just see whatever it is that's useful to you. Now, wherever there's data on Seneca, you can export it to CSV. So what that means, if you click on that button, it'll basically download a spreadsheet with whatever data you've got on the screen at that time will just be imported into a spreadsheet for you. So you can then use it however you want. So that's one way you can see data, which is very useful if you're looking to set assignments. Or I should mention actually, so this only shows data between the start and end date of the assignment, or actually just after the start date of the assignment. The reason for that is you might be wanting to tell your students to do a bit of spaced practice. So we don't want the data from having completed it previously to be shown up in the data that you're looking for here. So that will only show data since the start date of your assignment. Now, the last 2 places you can see data, first of all, is in Insights. Now, that is where you can really basically drill down and see what your students have been doing independently. It looks similar to as we see it in assignments, but you can actually yeah, you can drill down to see what they've been doing independently of assignments as well. So you could choose the course. So this class only has one course in it. Choose your metric, choose the date range you want to see scores for. So we'll do last year, shall we? You can also select a custom date range if you'd like. And then you can select the sections you want to see. So again, you'll recognize this from when you were setting assignment. It's the same sort of setup. You can again select as many or as few of these sections you want to see data for. And then when I click select sections, you give it a moment to whir. And while it's pulling all that data from your students' accounts, and again, you can see it nicely red, amber, green, so you can understand where your students, oh, sorry, I've just gone forward. So you can understand where your students are struggling, where they haven't done so well, and then you can put in place interventions. And again, you can sort by any of these columns like you did before, and you can export to CSV like before as well. Now, the final place you can see data, and this is sort of the highest level overview. This is probably most useful to just have a look to see whether your students have been on and completing work. It's within this Students tab. So you'll see all your students listed here. Again, you can select your course and your date range, and then you'll get data basically based on the learning time, average score, sessions completed, and the correct answers for this date range. So again, that's handy if you just want to have like a high level overview of what's going on in your class. And again, you can export that to CSV, so you can use that in whichever way you want once it's in a spreadsheet. So that is basically everything that's on the teacher platform. The highlights are you follow the steps at the beginning to set up your classes. You can set assignments and you can track your students' progress through the assignments, but you can also track what students are up to independently by looking at insights and students. What I'd say is if you've got any questions on that, please start typing them now, just while I tell you a few other bits that we've got going on at the moment. And I'll do my best to answer them in a second. One thing that is particularly interesting to a lot of people at the moment is we've got a new program running, again, which is completely free to sign up to, but it's called our School Analytics and SLT Support Program. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me. Yeah, School Analytics and SLT Support Program. And what that is basically will give your school access to more data. So at the moment, we just provide you within a class some data so you can see what's going on. But this would basically give you sort of an SLT overview of what's been going on, what's going to go on across the school. So you can benefit from seeing that overview. And then also a few other benefits like early access to our CPD conferences, our CPD courses, access to our smart homework feature, which will be coming very soon, which will basically allow you to automatically reassign what your students are doing based on their prior performance. So you'll be able to say, I want you to reset everything that a student got under 50%, as an example, and a few other benefits as well. So that's one program we've got going on at the moment. You'll get emailed a link of how to sort of join it after this event. I'll send it out to everyone. And then a few other things as well. There's a summer catch-up program that we're running. Obviously, given everything that's gone on with COVID, we're trying to think about how we can best support students' recovery for that. So one of the things we're doing is, I mentioned this smart homework feature that's going to be available soon. If you can take a few steps now to make smart homework as smart as possible, then it will basically put you in a really good stead too. But first of all, come September, identify the knowledge gaps your students have developed over the last few months. And second of all, a really quick way that you click a button and you're able to plug those knowledge gaps. And again, that's a free program. You just need to register your interest by following the link that I'll email you after this session. So I'm going to go to questions now. Question from R.A. Brewster. So question about when we'll get a specific course written. So if there are specific courses that you guys, that we don't cover, that you guys want or need, what I'd suggest is you go onto our help pages. There's a link to a form to fill in, and we basically gather requests on what courses are desired by the people using Seneca the most. So if there are courses that you guys want and we don't cover, I suggest filling that in. I don't have a particular lead time on the course that you've requested there. It's OCR A-level geography. But yeah, so we're working on adding new content all the time. So it's really useful to know what people need and want, so we can factor that into our plans. Question from Rod: who are Seneca's clients? I'm not sure what you mean by that question, Rod. So because we work with students and teachers and parents, so I guess you guys are our clients, I would say. Yeah, we've got 3.5 million users using us. Yeah, so if you want to elaborate further down, Rod, then that'd be handy. Kubra, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name right. Yeah, so if you want the slides, I'll show you where to get them. So on your teacher platform, if you just go onto this top tips section and click seal, there's loads of nice resources in here that you can get, and one of them is presentations. So the presentation I took you through earlier will be available in this by going here. Okay. Oh, sorry, you can't see my screen. I've just realized that. Let me share my screen again. Yeah, so from your when you first log in as a teacher, this top tips section, if you click seal, you can go down and presentations are just here, so you can get access to all our presentations. We've pre-made some presentations for different time periods, different audiences, so you can go in there and have a look to see what's useful. Another question from Raina, if that's the Raina I've been emailing. Hello. What the cost of the whole package, including SLT analytics? So everything I've just shown you is free. The school analytics and SLT support is free. There's no cost associated with it. You don't need to dip into any budgets or anything. The way we cover our costs is basically we offer a premium version as well for students who want more access to more content. Students can sort of upgrade to a premium subscription with us, and schools can do that as well. But all of the resources we provide are complete, and they cover the whole spec. We don't leave anything out. It's just access to additional content and a couple of extra learning features as well that we provide for our premium users. Everything I've just shown you today is completely free. Question from Gareth: is there a way of seeing student responses to see where they don't understand rather than a percentage? So no, I'm afraid not, Gareth. So we don't provide any question level analysis. The reason for that is it would be really overwhelming in terms of the amount of questions, amount of data you'd have to go through. So to present the data in a nice way, we provide you with a shortened, the percentage that's indicative of the student's understanding in that topic. And the way we break the topics down is, we hope that gives you enough to understand where your students are going wrong. And the nice thing is that if you reassign what your students are struggling with on Seneca, the system will know what they did last time and know what they didn't understand last time. It will be able to adapt what the student sees the second time they do it accordingly. So it'll automatically do that. Question from Claire: will access to smart homework someone could catch up be free? Yes. So everything I've talked about, apart from the small 30 seconds I talked about premium, is free. So smart homework will be free. We provide everything we provide for teachers, including smart homework, all the stuff like that will always be for free. That's something that's sort of core to our values as an organization. The premium offer is there to allow us to cover our costs, to make sure that we can provide a high quality free education service for as many people as possible. Mohamedou: can Seneca be set specifically for a department? So yes, so when you sign up, you can just you can just sign up, create your class and add your specific department. So because it's free to use as a single department, you don't need to go into any budgets or get any permission or anything like that. You can just go away and start using it in your department. So question from MLE about premium materials. So these are the premium materials that you pay for. So we cover a whole host of different courses on our premium content. So these are things like exam style questions, different learning modes where we break the content down into smaller chunks with more images and stuff like that. We also give specific targeting for particular grades, students aiming for those grades. We give ready-made flashcards for students. There's, I think about 12 different course types you get with premium. If you want to see what those are, you can see them. You won't be able to view them, but you can see them on our courses page. And if you are interested in learning more, I'd suggest just getting in touch with us. Gareth, so yes, the percentage does include the question from Gareth is, does the percentage include interleaved topics from other areas? So the interleaving within Seneca sticks within topic area, but it interleaves between different areas of that topic. So it will still be specific to that topic, the percentage you get. Question from Jane, I noticed worksheets and cheat sheets and see they're in Google Drive, but I can't actually see them. So you should be able to, Jane, just click on open up the Google sheet, the worksheets we provide. If you're struggling, what I suggest you do is join one of our resources Facebook groups for your subject. So if you just search on Facebook, Seneca resources, and then your subject, then you'll be able to find all the links for worksheets in there if you're struggling. A question from Rod, how would a teacher register his or her courses in Seneca? Just subscribing to it, or does Seneca require some pre-screening? No, so you can go to our website, senecalearning.com, right now on your phone, on your tablet, or on your computer, and just create an account for free. There's no pre-screening or anything like that. You just go away straight away and do it. No need to do anything else. That's a good point, actually. I didn't mention this earlier. So our Seneca works on all devices. So it's not just a computer thing. A lot of students use it on their mobiles, and it's optimized for mobile. So yeah, so that's good. And we're about to release our first Android app, which is very exciting. So that will soon be on the Google Play Store in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, any more questions, please keep them coming in. But I think that it looks like they seem to have dried up. But I hope everyone found this helpful. If you've got any questions, the best way to get in touch with us is on our website. There is a chat feature there which you can ask questions on, and also all the sort of stuff you might struggle with. There's a help article for everything and anything. So have a look in our help sections if you want to try and get an instant answer on the problem you're having. Good. I'm glad you guys found it useful. Thanks very much for your feedback, guys. And yeah, enjoy. Have a great evening.